That's CecilsTractors.com.
This is the Saturday Morning Update. I'm Rick Fowler. Very important effort is underway to construct a memorial in Washington, D.C. to honor those who have served in the global war on terrorism. And members of the organization gathering in Washington this weekend to further the project. And we're joined by Rod Rodriguez. He is the President and Chief Executive Officer of the Global War on Terrorism Memorial Foundation. And Rod, it's great to have you with us this morning.
Oh, Rick, hey, I thank you for having me on your show, and really appreciate you taking the time.
Absolutely. The war memorials in Washington, the Vietnam Veterans Memorial, the World War II Veterans Memorial, those are wars that are finite. They are completed. The global war on terrorism started around 9/11 and continues to this day. And I don't think we really take the time to recognize that there are so many members of various areas of service who are giving their lives and being wounded in the ongoing global war on terrorism.
No, you're 100% right. This war has no precedent. We're in a multi-generational conflict with really no clearly forecasted end in sight. I can't speak to that, and when I say multi-generational, this really struck home for me. I served in the Army for 21 years, deployed 9 times, and my oldest son, he was 4 years old when the towers fell, which was the catalyst for the current conflict, and he was 4 when it happened. Those were some of his very first memories as a child. But a little over a year ago, he's an airborne infantryman in the 82nd Airborne. When he deployed to Afghanistan, doing similar work to what I was doing, that really kind of struck a tone for me. I'm like, wow, we really are in a multi-generational conflict with no end in sight, and, this war has no precedence, which, leads to, this memorial has no precedence. We are building a living war memorial to a living war, which is why 2 years ago we had to get authorization from Congress to actually do this, because there was a law on the books that said a war had to be over for a period of 10 years in order for a national war memorial to be built. Like, World War II was built almost 60 years after the cessation of conflict. Well, if we would have followed that law and just Commemorative Works Act of 1986, then, I could never have seen a war memorial for, the war that I fought in. We are considered a sacred duty that we share, and I think we all share as American citizens, to honor everyone that has stepped forward in service. As an example, in January of this year, of 2019, we lost 7 Americans fighting in the global war on terrorism. 4 of those members were from 3 different services. 3 of those Americans who lost their lives were actually contractors. So that speaks to the uniqueness and really complexities of this conflict. And anybody that steps forth and serves in whatever capacity, it is the foundation's belief that they should be honored in their service and sacrifices. I think it's very important for us to honor, all the men and women that have stepped forth and served in this, our nation's longest war. The first generation of warfighters are senior level commanders. As a matter of fact, one of our board advisors, he's the 16th Chairman, Joint Chief of Staff, General Peter Pace. He's in his 70s. He possibly could never see this war memorial built to where he was the Chairman, Joint Chief of Staff for, a big portion of it. So it's a very, very unique and important effort.
You mentioned congressional approval. Describe the process of going about constructing a national memorial.
Well, and as I'm sure a lot of your listeners within the Beltway understand, there's quite a lot of steps that govern this process, pretty much anything in Washington, D.C. It is a 24-step process in order to build a national war memorial. We are currently on steps 9 through 12. Obviously, we got congressional approval. They got us everything to steps 1 through 8. So currently steps 9 through 12 is site selection, which is, is as important as any of the other steps. But that's where we are as a foundation right now. We are looking within the National Mall to find key locations that not only, will capture the global war on terrorism, but, we're looking to add something to the city. We're not just running here, planting a flag, and, we're being extremely respectful and honoring of the city and this America's front line. Very, very important for us to follow the steps in process and to build this memorial.
You know, you bring up an interesting point in that memorials are to be constructed 10 years after the conclusion of a war minimum, but the global war on terrorism will continue for likely decades. It is a noble initiative, and Rod, tell people how they can find out more about the foundation and if they'd like to donate to your efforts.
Of course, we would love for everyone to track our progress as we go through this. You can find us at our website, www.GWOTMF.org. You can find us on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Reach out to us, see how you can get involved by donating your time or treasure.
Rod Rodriguez, President and CEO of the Global War on Terrorism Memorial Foundation. Appreciate your time this morning and wish you the very best in your efforts.
Thank you so much, Rick.
It's 6:30.